Nigeria's Africa's biggest and most populous country goes to the polls this Saturday for two crunching elections to choose a new president and members of a new National Assembly. The elections have been hotly contested and headlined by about four political parties: the APC, the Labour Party, the NNPP, and the PDP. So let's harvest some views now on the elections and the country's political economy since 1999 as we turn to international journalist and political economist Ochieno Joseph out of Kampala, Uganda. A good evening to you, sir. Thank you very much for coming through. We've got to do this interview very quickly. Thank you so much for coming through. What's your overview? If you look at Nigeria's political landscape, I'm sure you're watching the jostlings for positions in this week's major transitional election.
Awesome. If you're talking to me, I am saying that it's a very exciting moment for Nigeria, possibly the first time in my adult life that we are seeing a possibility not only of a genuine democratic elections, but one in which there is an apparent outsider who could possibly win elections, number one. Number two, but very importantly, that the election seems to be on the issues. And then number three, most importantly, that elections are on issues, and particularly the vast majority of young Nigerians are substantially animated by this outsider, a man who's come from an untraditional political party outside the usual two.
So, but how would you rate Nigeria's political, economic growth and development so far since 1919? I'm sure you reported Nigeria very well as an international journalist all the way down during the military era into that transition that brought President Olusegun Obasanjo into office in 1999. What was your view back then about where Nigeria is going as far as democratic dispensation was concerned?
In fact, mine goes way back to 1991-92. The last time when Moshood Abiola was supposed to be the president, it happened that my then personal assistant in my job in UK was a supporter of Moshood Abiola, and we saw it with interest. But anyway, after 1999, obviously there's a huge amount of expectations. I happened to have met President Obasanjo in London at the time leading to these elections. There's huge expectations that not only the election is going to be democratic, but that this big military guy was very likely going to be able to give a possibility of stability for Nigeria. Because remember at the time, there was this thing that it was impossible for a civilian to govern Nigeria, just like it is the case today that Nigerians will be very surprised that there's a possibility that there is a candidate who's not supported by either of the traditional established political parties. So no, Nigeria has moved substantially much. But I must say that I was generally quite disappointed because I expected, particularly President Buhari, with a huge amount of promises that if he came in, he would seek to reform Nigeria. But amongst the big reforms that I was hoping that he would do was that as the tough military guy, that perhaps he would rein on corruption, but also rein on the self-interest, which are almost like the mafioso economy. Because if that is done, and you really go into the economic and political infrastructure restructuring of Nigeria, this is our biggest economy. This is our biggest country in the country. This is our proud country on the continent. And this is an economy in the country that every African, both at home, meaning mainland Africa, and in the diaspora, would like to see thrive like the Singapores of this day. So yes, those are what I've seen, but by and large, it hasn't met my expectations. In the possibility that perhaps the old man Obi wins, there is just about a possibility that, yes, he might break off the ranks and then try and give hope to the vast majority of young Nigerians. The country with a huge potential in the African continent. So I'm generally very hopeful.
Joseph, just a final one to go. What would you have 1 or 2, 3 points that you consider as top of your list to do for Nigeria's next president come the 1st of June?
I think the number one thing is corruption. It's not only Nigeria, but it's a big African sickness. So corruption, number one. Number two, I think with the incoming Nigerian president, really this question of national unity is extremely important. The myths, I can call it the myths about the North and the South, the religious polity that continues to plague Nigeria, the sense of feeling that a certain section of Nigeria is marginalized, particularly the Southeast, perhaps, regardless of whoever is elected as president, should seek really to build that bridge. But I think it would be very exciting and very interesting if we saw this 61-year-old man, who's possibly a man with massive energy relative.
I'm sorry, We lost today momentarily Ochieno Joseph, international journalist and political economy out of Kampala. Thank you so much for your thoughts, your views from outside, from Kampala.